I wanted to talk about getting set up with the motorhome on a site, and it seems to be something that some people can get confused about and not really know what the right thing to do is. So I wanted to cover a few sort of basics really. So I'm going to go over what our process is. So what do you need to do to get your motorhome set up on a campsite? You know, we're on a campsite right now. It's a field where we're parked up against a hedge. There's a few other caravans and motorhomes around, and the facilities point is away down there. So what is it you need to do to make sure that you get set up correctly and you don't have any issues while you're staying? Well, one of the first things that you will want to do is, as you arrive at the campsite, you'll want to make sure that your water is full, so that you don't run the risk of running out and having to move. So what we do is we have we've got this little filler here, and we have a hose just inside through there. We got that there. We keep our fresh drinking water there as well, because we never ever drink from the main tank, because you know sometimes water can be sort of left in there for quite a long time. So you want to fill up with your water, and once you've done that, you want to make sure, and this is round the other side, I'll show you around the other side of the motorhome, you want to make sure that your waste tank is empty. And you'll find most motorhomes have a sort of drain and a release handle there, just to make sure that you've got plenty of space in your waste tank for any wastewater to be stored. So you'll also want to make sure that your toilet cassette is in good order. Make sure it's emptied. If you're near, when you're entering the campsite, where we are now, all the facilities are down by the entrance, so I always make sure to empty if it needs it. Even if it doesn't, I just make sure to empty it. I always keep a bottle of disinfectant spray in there so that I can give everything a good wipe. And also what you want to do is check up on your electrical input. So we've got the electrical hookup here, and you always want to be plugging this end into your motorhome first before you find out where the hookup that you're going to supply the power from goes in. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to be walking around with a live end of a cable with a 16 amp electrical supply. The main point is get the van plugged in first and then go and connect to your electrical supply. We've also got a little check that we do on the gas bottles, but even though the gas gauges read empty, we don't take much notice. We wait until one runs out and then we switch over to the other bottle, so that we're then very sure about, well, one's run right out and the other one is going, and we know roughly how much time we've got, but we can always go and fill up now. So we start to look for filling stations when one bottle has run out. But also what you want to do is you want to think about whether the van is going to be level. And mostly, most campsites are a little bit on the skew. You can see this, we found a fairly level area here, but what we do have is a set of leveling blocks which can go under the front wheels to lift the front up, or under the back to lift the back up. And you want to get that level. Some people carry a spirit level or a bubble level to check whether they are actually getting it level. What we tend to do is get parked up and then see if we're about level, see how it feels, you know, get a feeling, you know, because you can normally tell if you're on a really bad slope, you really notice it because you're sort of tumbling down one end of the van. But what we do also is we use something, well, you know, as I say, some people use a sort of spirit level or a bubble level, but we use, well, I used to use cans, bottles of beer, but we've got less bottles these days. But a can of beans like this will do just fine, and I'm just going to show you how we do that. So all we do is find a flat surface, put the can of beans in the middle, and then see if it rolls. Yeah, well, it's rolling a bit, isn't it? It rolls a little bit that way. Yeah, so we're sloping to the passenger side a little bit, and I think the can will roll that way. Yeah, we're sloping down a little bit, but it's not enough to trouble us at all. I mean, we don't really notice. I mean, if I really think about it, I can think it's sloping a bit down, but it really doesn't feel like we're on a tilt at all. I mean, in some places we've been, we felt really, really bad, especially if we've been on a bit of a journey to get somewhere. We've had no time to, you know, in the old van, in the Carabus, we had bikes on the back and we couldn't open the back doors to get to the storage, and we couldn't get leveling ramps, you know, and all that sort of stuff. So we just didn't bother at times. We just coped with the sleeping, you know, sloping down. If it was really bad slope, I'd get the leveling blocks out, position those up, and then just drive up them enough to set the van level. But it's fine as it is. It's not bad at all. Hardly you can. Well, we don't notice it in the, you know, just in normal living. We don't notice any little slope. And bearing in mind, we were out day before yesterday, and we came back. We just parked randomly on our pitch. I think we were slightly further back that way before we left to go out for the day, and I think we're slightly further down the hill, so I think we've just tipped over a slope a little bit. So moving on, once you've filled up with your water, you've made sure your waste tank is empty, you've checked on your toilet, made sure that's all good, you've got your electric plugged in to your van, and you've connected it to the electrical post. What you need to do then is just show you up here. This is our gauge, so that's everything switched off, and these are our sort of gauges where we look at things. That's gone up to 50% for the fresh water. That's the starter battery level. It always reads 12.5. I'm not sure it ever reads anything different. Habitation battery is also on there. That's at 13. I pretty much ignore those because we've had the battery upgrade. But then there's the wastewater. So you press that and the wastewater, not always that reliable. On a farm field, which is where we are, the advice is, and as you may have seen when I showed you the the waste drainage, we essentially let that drip out. So that's the advice, just let it drip onto the field. It's fine. One other thing you've got up on the control panel end, and let's just tip you back a bit again, is the heater control. Now we've got a Truma Combi, which is gas only heating, and there are two switches, one inner and one outer. It does heating and hot water, so you can have heating and hot water together, or you can have just hot water. Do that a bit more closely. So you'll see there's a little sort of indentation just there. That tells you it's on 60 degrees, there's 40 degrees. If we're talking about heating, then the heating level for this van that's good enough for us, even in some of the coldest temperatures, is 2 or 1.5, and sometimes that's too much. 1 is always too little. 1.5 is normally about everything we need. If it's a super cold day like -10 outside, 2, 3 if we want to give it a bit of a boost. So that's how broadly you get your van set up. There's one thing I haven't mentioned yet, is the fridge. Now we've got a Thetford 3-way fridge. Now that runs on gas, 230 volt and 12 volt, but it only runs on 12 volt when you're driving. So when the engine's running, switches to 12 volt. There are multiple settings. So there's a main switch here, and if you hold that in, that'll switch the whole thing off. So there's no lights on here at all, so it's non-operational. Press and hold it, all the lights come on to let you know it's been switched on, and it will show you what it's using at the moment. But there is another button here which will allow you, if you press and hold it for a few seconds, you can flick backwards and forwards on these arrows to different settings. Now the A means it will automatically choose gas, electric or battery, or 12 volt battery. So normally it would switch on to that, and you'll see it's gone back to gas. So I'm just going to press that again to demonstrate. So switch that on to automatic. You can switch it on to electric only, so that'll work on 230 volt only. It won't auto switch. You can switch it to battery, but that will only work when the engine's running. And you can put it on to gas, so that sort of makes sure it's on gas all of the time. But mainly people would use it on the auto setting, because then it would just sense. But if you press that button again, it comes on to the cold levels. Now, if you want it more cold, you're going to go up there. But actually what we found is, even in the cold weathers, even in the summer like now, we've got this on the minimum, and the fridge sort of seems too cold. So there we are. It's on automatic, and it's switched to gas, and it's on its minimum setting. So broadly, that's pretty much all you need to go through. And I know it seems like a lot, doesn't it, to take care of, but we used to have a checklist that we went through. We called it our pre-flight checklist, because we always need to check things are done before you drive away. Actually more important than checking things are done when you get to a site, because if you don't fill up with water until the next day, that's fine, isn't it? Because it's annoying because you have to drive off and come back. There's also something else, and that just reminded me of the little amusing story where we went to a campsite in the the pretty cold weather in the carabus, and the frost protection switch in the carabus was really sensitive. We went and filled up with water, and it filled up, but by the time we'd driven away from the little area where you fill up with water, we'd driven around the campsite a bit to our pitch where we'd chosen to stay, the frost protection had kicked in, and it what that does, that dumps all the water. So we'd put 100 litres of fresh water in, and it just dumped all the water by the time we'd got pitched up. And so when we turned the taps on, no water. I thought, what the, anyway. So that's something else just to check. Just that'll be near your Truma boiler, and it'll be a little blue switch that needs to be made sure it's on. And you can tell whether it's in the right position because there's a trip button that needs to be pressed back in, and then the switch reset. So if the trip button's not out, as it were, they're not tripped, then the switch is probably in the right position. So that's that. All of that stuff, when you get in the van and you've done all those things, it really does take just a few minutes. Time you've filled up water on the way in, got to your pitch, pitched up, put the leveling blocks out, you're probably 10 minutes for doing that, and then you're ready to make a cup of tea, aren't you? So that's the time to test the taps. So easy to test the taps. You just switch them on, switch them off. If they work, that's great. If they don't, it might mean that you've been out of water for a while and you've built up a little air blockage, an airlock. So the thing to do then is to go around the whole van. We've got 3 taps in the van, one for the shower, one for the bathroom, one for the kitchen. I go around and I'll switch all those on. This has happened. And I'll switch all those on, let the water run, let it sort itself out. The air gradually works out because it's been pumped through. It gradually works itself out, and the taps splutter somewhat, spraying water. If you're standing in front of a tap when it's spluttering, you get wet. So, but that's about it really. The only other thing you need to do is after you got set up, got to a campsite, is get your chairs out, relax, and have a cup of tea or a beer. Why not? Anyway, that's it from me. I'll see you again in the next one. Thanks for watching, and I hope this has been helpful. Bye bye for now.